Welcome to everyone to the House Committee on Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs. Our hearing today, Tuesday, February 13th, 2024, 2 p.m. here in Conference Room 325 in the State Capitol. Our Vice Chair Takayama is not able to be here today, so thank you to our Vice Chair Pro Tem, Sonny Ganadin, who's going to help us out today. And thank you to our members Kanani Souza and Tyson Miyake for being here. The others will be here presently. Those who are testifying today via Zoom or in person, if you could keep your testimony to 2 minutes, I'll ask you to wrap up at that point. And if you're testifying via Zoom, please keep yourself muted and your video off while you're waiting to testify, and then after your testimony is over, please mute yourself and turn your video off. The Zoom chat function is there for you to chat with the technical staff only, so if you have issues, let them know. And if you're disconnected unexpectedly, don't panic, just rejoin when you can, and I'll try to fit you in to provide your testimony at that time. If the power goes out here in the Capitol, a network failure, we may have to reschedule the hearing or schedule a meeting for decision making, and if so, we'll certainly post appropriate notice. Please avoid using any trademarked or copyrighted images on Zoom. That kicks us off of YouTube, and that's a problem. And please conduct yourself with aloha and refrain from profanity or uncivil behavior. We're all in this business to help the state of Hawaii do what's best for everybody here. So we're allies. It's okay to disagree, but let's not be disagreeable with each other, please. First up, House Bill 1544 relating to State Water Code penalties. This measure adds a minimum penalty and amends the maximum penalty per violation of the State Water Code. It expands the types of potential violations of the State Water Code and makes each day that a violation exists or continues to exist a separate offense. This requires a Commission on Water Resource Management to consider certain factors when imposing penalties, and makes the setting, charging, and collecting of administrative fines by the Commission on Water Resource Management mandatory rather than discretionary. First up, we have testimony from the Department of Land and Natural Resources. Welcome. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair Tarnas, members of the committee. Dean Ueno, Acting Deputy Director for the Commission on Water Resource Management. Here testifying on behalf of the department. If I can just point out, the department has found that the current maximum penalty of $5,000 per violation in HRS Section 174C-15 does not have a sufficient deterrent effect anymore. And so, just an example, even a one-time violation of an in-stream flow standard can lead to the diversion of millions of gallons of water. And if the violating entity is charging end users for the delivery of this stream water, $5,000 essentially is the cost of doing business. And so if we truly believe that water quantity is on par with water quality and water is our most important resource, then we believe that meeting the similar fines to the Department of Health is justified. While we appreciate the intent of raising the ceiling to $60,000 per violation, the chair of the department, Don Chang, met with the county water departments, and they agreed that a maximum fine of at least $25,000, based on the recommendations of the prior review commission, were sufficient. And so that is our testimony, and we stand by it at this time, and we're here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony with comments from the County of Hawaii Department of Water Supply. Next, we have testimony with comments from the Honolulu Board of Water Supply. Welcome. Please proceed.
Aloha. Kathy Mitchell with the Board of Water Supply. Yes, we have concerns of HB 1544 HD1. While the House Draft 1 has removed the maximum amounts, Chair Don Chang did speak with the managers of the county boards and departments of water supply, and they agreed to $25,000 maximum. In this bill, it has at least $25,000. Sounds like a starting point. When he started, the maximum was $60,000, and now it's changed to at least. So I know there's administrative cost, but it should we should strike at least and just stay with 25,000. Also, we'd like to add that there should be more stakeholder input because this bill was vetoed by the governor last year, and there wasn't sufficient justification. And so we'd like more stakeholder input. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have testimony in opposition from the Land Use Research Foundation of Hawaii, testimony in support from the Sierra Club of Hawaii, and testimony in support from Ted Bolin. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on HB 1544? If not, questions, members? Just a question to Honolulu Board of Water Supply, Kathy Mitchell. So you're wanting to be involved in the rulemaking process as a consultation, is that what you're asking for?
Correct.
Okay, okay, all right,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, there being no further questions, let's move on to the next measure, HB 1781. This is relating to the Hawaii Community Development Authority. It establishes the Panaeva Community Development District to allow for planning, development, and maintenance of public lands in Panaeva, Hawaii. It amends the membership of the Hawaii Community Development Authority to include representatives of the Panaeva Community Development District. First up, we have testimony from Department of Land and Natural Resources.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. Ryan Kanakaole, Department of Land and Natural Resources. The department stands on its comments that provided the current disposition statuses of the affected parcels, and we're here for any questions. Thank you.
If you could just, is there any other summary you want to, highlights you want to make? But it looked like it was just the current disposition
Yes.
of the TMKs themselves. That was
No,
pretty much it.
that's it. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, thank you. Next, we have testimony with comments. Any other from DLNR, or just, that was it from DLNR? Because we have two people from DLNR signed up. That was it? Okay. Next, we have testimony support from HCDA.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair Tarnas, Vice Chair Pro Tem Ganadin, and members of the committee. Craig Nakamoto, Executive Director for Hawaii Community Development Authority. We stand on our written testimony in support of this bill. Thank you.
Any other highlights you want to provide to those who are watching who hadn't had a chance to read your testimony?
No, we look forward to, working with the community and realizing what might be the vision for this district.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nakamoto. Next, we have testimony with comments from the Department of Budget and Finance and testimony in opposition from Regina Gregory. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on HB 1781? If not, questions, members? Nope, seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you to the testifiers. Next, House Bill 2467, House Draft 1, relating to rent credits for demolition and infrastructure costs on public land leases. This measure repeals the sunset provision of Act 222, Session Laws of Hawaii 2021, to permanently allow the Board of Land and Natural Resources to approve rent credits for demolition and infrastructure costs for public land leases. On this measure, we have testimony from the Department of Land and Natural Resources.
Good afternoon, Ryan Kanakaole, Department of Land and Natural Resources. The department stands on its testimony in support. This bill is part of DLNR's administrative package. DLNR and the Land Board have used the Rent Credit Authority under Act 222 when negotiating long-term leases. The credits incentivize new or prospective lessees to invest in the demolition of existing improvements that are on the leased properties that have aged to the point where demolition is necessary, or to invest in installing new utility infrastructure. These rent credits have proven to be an important tool in our toolbox when it comes to negotiating leases and getting our properties up to par. We're here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to testify on HB 2467? If not, questions, members? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you. Next measure, House Bill 2328, relating to affordable housing. This measure appropriates funds to the Hawaii Public Housing Authority to acquire and renovate parcels and buildings located between Bethel Street, Pauahi Street, Fort Street, and Chaplain Lane in Honolulu, Oahu for affordable housing purposes. It requires units to be affordable to households having an income that does not exceed an unspecified percentage of the area median income. First up, we have testimony from the Hawaii Public Housing Authority.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Afternoon.
Members. Ben Park with the Hawaii Public Housing Authority. We're going to stand on our testimony and support, and just wanted to brush upon a couple of comments that we want to make sure that all the due diligence is done if this measure passes forward. The Director is on Zoom if there's any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Next, we have testimony from Dana Ha.
Apologies, that's my government name. My name is May. Most people call me May.
May Ha, please.
Yeah.
Proceed.
Okay, I am here today to oppose HB 2328 today because, well, you say Bethel, Blaisdell, and Whitlow are underutilized, but I disagree. That area is home to a lot of creatives, musicians, and queer people that I know in our local community. Hawaii is supposed to be one of the most LGBTQ-friendly places compared to the continental U.S. If places like Scarlet and Proof Social Club are gone, where will we go? We only have so few and far between spaces. So I wonder, what is the solution to this besides having to replace and displace communities again and again? That is it for my testimony.
Thank you very much. We've got written testimony from Kayla Marie in opposition, Regina Gregory in support, Adele Balderston in opposition, and Ben Lowenthal in opposition. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on this measure? Governor Abercrombie, welcome, sir. The floor is yours. Please proceed. You want to come on over and you want to grab these so we can pass them out? Sure. Yeah. She'll pass it out for you. You can go ahead and. Thank you. I will. If you need more, they're here. Okay. Yeah, there are other members that will be here soon, so we'll do that. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Parenthetically, could I just give a brief, not rejoinder, to the
focus on your testimony.
Okay.
Yeah, you got a couple minutes.
I will,
That'd be great.
because I think some of the danger that's involved here is not, it's not going to take place. Hawaii Public Housing Authority, Mr. Chairman, thank you, members, for the opportunity here. This is really a rare opportunity. The Hawaii Public Housing Authority has announced an ambitious and much-needed program to acquire or renovate properties for the purpose of addressing the crisis over the lack of affordable, permanent rental units, with particular emphasis on the urban core in Hawaii. Last Friday, Governor Green and Homeless Coordinator John Mizuno opened Ka Malu Ko'olau, the latest Kauhali in Kaneohe. As you are aware, Kauhali are communal living spaces with shared bathrooms and kitchens. The governor and Mr. Mizuno stated their intention of expanding the concept to existing apartment, commercial, or office buildings to create residential reuse for such assets, urban villages. The Bethel Street block described in HB 2328 offers an exceptional opportunity to create literally dozens, in fact hundreds, of such units at a fraction of the cost of a standard development. The existing buildings will be converted from existing commercial space to residential use above the first floor. The Bethel Street block offers an exceptional opportunity, as I said, for commercial use. The result will be a rejuvenated community which will revitalize the Fort Street Mall area and spark a rebirth of urban life in the Chinatown area. Successfully coming to grips with cost factors, providing truly affordable units of the income disadvantaged was given vivid prominence recently when we learned a developer of affordable housing at 80% AMI and above had to ask the state to provide subsidies in the millions of dollars to enable the developer to succeed in the face of high interest rates and construction costs. Trying to create affordable housing from scratch, particularly for sale or rent, is a perilous challenger to any developer. If we are to confront the cost realities of providing safe, practical rental spaces, transposing existing commercial and retail assets is the key. We can stop storing people and start actually housing them. The asking price of $30 million for the property reflects the market value for commercial and retail usage. The state, of course, has other purposes in mind. The prospect of truly affordable permanent rental units is before you with HB 2328. So I ask that the committee forward the bill to finance with the purchase price at $1 to enable the Public Housing Authority and the state coordinator to explore the issue as the legislative process moves forward.
Thank you.
If you look on the second page, you'll see the transition there.
Thank you.
And I assure you that the intention of the state is not to get rid of anybody who's occupying the first floor for business purposes and others, or those who are now able to rent at low prices there. The whole idea is to have low income be able to live there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Governor. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on HB 2328, HD1? If not, questions, members? Representative Gannon.
To the Hawaii Public Housing Authority? Still here? Or,
Aloha, Chair.
Oh,
hi.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Hakeem Wansafi, Executive Director, Hawai'i Public Housing Authority.
Hi. There's been some testimony with some, I think, fairly legitimate concerns about pushing out the existing commercial users of the property. The former governor just gave an excellent testimony discussing how the first floor tenants won't be immediately kicked out. Just for everybody else's, as he was testifying, I was reminded that I actually worked in the building. I was a waiter at Sol de Cuba Cafe, a little Cuban restaurant on the first floor. And what I remember was that on the second floor, a lot of folks used those spaces for commercial use as well. That's where they did their accounting, they held their books. So are you going to determine commerciality based on sort of where the unit is, or just by how the existing lease is?
Thank you for the question. All the projects that we are embarking on, we make sure that there is mixed income, mixed use development to bring life at night, to bring life during the day, and also to have eyes on the street. So this will be no different. Our due diligence that we have mentioned in our testimony is to be able to determine that, as well as determining how many units, what is the cost, to make sure that property like that, it's used for affordable housing that is well needed, but also making sure that there are commercial spaces.
One more, sure. I'm seeing in an individual who submitted testimony that the property is just outside the Chinatown Historic District. So it's not subject to a specific type of review for this kind of a thing. However, the Old Blazo Hotel, which is the subject of this conversation, it could be considered a National Registered Historic Building. Should it become a National Registered Historic Building, would that, could you proceed with purchasing this property, or would that put this whole thing in disarray?
If it makes if the feasibility study shows that it is good investment for the state, then we will proceed with that, because even if it's a historic district and it's registered, there are rules and ways to renovate, improve, and making sure that the character and everything that is protected continues to be there. So it is not unusual. In fact, there are certain federal credit for renovation of historic buildings.
Director, there's also been testimony that this building in particular in this community has a special history with the LGBTQ plus community, as well as other communities that have been, I guess, minorities in other parts of the city. In your mixed use development, can we kind of perpetuate this use of the building? It's home to some favorite bars and clubs and restaurants, and it's right across the street from the Hawai'i Theater. It's a place known for diversity.
We are a state agency that adheres to the most stringent of the laws, both federal and state. Any human being is our brother and our sister, and we treat them equally and love them equally. So there will be no attempt by anyone to displace any individuals or to impact anyone. As we said in our testimony, our goal is to, if this is passes and the legislature would like to move forward, is to do any and all due diligence that's necessary to come up what is the best use for the taxpayers and continue to do that. It is something that we believe if it's done right, it will be an added jewel to that area and an added value. And equally as important, it'd be something that brings affordable housing that is needed in that area for those who live in that area, but they're getting priced out. Units that are specifically in downtown and elsewhere. So this is we as government, we have that responsibility and obligation to all of our people, to all of our brothers and sisters.
Thank you so much, Director.
Thank you very much. Other questions, members? Seeing none, thank you very much to all our testifiers. We'll move on. House Bill 2478. This measure is relating to the Pacific Marine Fisheries Compact. It authorizes the governor to execute a compact on behalf of the state to cooperate in the Pacific States Marine Fisheries Commission and establishes procedures for selection and succession of commissioners. First up, we have testimony from the Department of Land and Natural Resources. Oh, you wear many hats within the department.
I do. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Ryan Kanakaole, Department of Land and Natural Resources. We stand on our testimony in strong support. This bill is also part of the DLNR's administrative package. It would allow our state to be part of and cooperate in the Pacific States Marine Fisheries Commission, and the state would benefit from participating in the commission because it would facilitate improved interstate collaboration on managing state and regional fisheries, increase access to information from experts in the commission, and potentially open up avenues for funding. We also provided some last-second amendments to the committee via the Division of Aquatic Resources. It adds a line to page 11, line 6, regarding the Hawaii representatives. It provides at least one commissioner shall have knowledge of Native Hawaiian cultural fishing practices and shall serve as a representative of the Native Hawaiian fishing community. That's all I got for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify on HB 2478, HD1? If not, questions, members? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you. House Bill 2626 HD1 relating to fish ponds. This specifies certain findings the Board of Land and Natural Resources must make for a lease of a government-owned Hawaiian fish pond. First up, we have Mr. Kanakaole. I might as well just call you right up. Thank you, sir. The floor is yours. Please proceed.
DLNR stands on its testimony in support. The current draft addresses all of DLNR's concerns raised in the previous committee regarding combining the lease approval process, which was overseen or is overseen by our land division, and the use oversight process, which is overseen by our Office of Conservation and Coastal Lands. So as far as this current House draft goes, we have no problem with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony from the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. Shane Palacott-Nelson.
Yep, aloha, Chair Tornes.
Aloha, Shane. Good to see you, man.
Good to see you too, yeah. Yep, testifying on behalf of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs in support of the HD1 version of House Bill 2626. Yeah, we just support the HD1 version that prioritizes and requires traditional Native Hawaiian practices and protocols. We also support the bill that it will also streamline the process to accelerate local food production and assist in food security as well. So yeah, we stand on the testimony, and I'll be available for questions later if needed. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Always good to see you, sir.
Yeah.
Next, we have testimony support from Leimomi Fisher.
Aloha mai kako, Chair Tarnas, Vice Chair Takayama, and committee members. I'm Olani Momi Fisher, testifying on behalf of Kua'aina Uluawamo, or KUA. As some of you might know, we support a large statewide network with numerous Malama Aina groups and individuals, including our largest network, which supports over 60 fish pond sites in various stages of restoration and engages hundreds of multi-sector caretakers and volunteers. And our shared mission is to one day achieve Aina Momona, which would be abundant and thriving ecological systems here in Hawaii, like we often hear about from days gone by. We strongly support HB 2626 HD1 as a step toward Aina Momona and to support ensuring the time-tested and place-based traditional Native Hawaiian practices that would be a main part of any fish pond management plan for leasing out state-owned fish ponds. And yeah, just to say currently there are, it was asked in another hearing for a related measure identical to this one, how many state-owned fish ponds there are, and we believe that there are about 83 from a 1990 report, and currently only 23 are being leased out to community groups since the 2015 permit streamlining. So there's definitely a great demand to do more fish pond restorations, and we think that this would help aid in addressing that demand. Thank you so much for hearing it. Mahalo.
Mahalo. And next we have testimony and support from Uilani Naipo. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure, HB 2626 HD1? If not, questions, members. Representative Ganadin.
To the DLNR.
Ian, you want to introduce yourself, please?
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. Ian Hirokawa with DLNR Land Division.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you for appearing and thank you for this bill. If you kind of traveled around Hawaii, you know that fish ponds differ greatly depending on the community that they're in. So for example, a fish pond on Molokai is run very differently from a fish pond in, let's say, urban Honolulu. I have the opportunity of representing folks in District 30, which includes Pu'uloa, now Pearl Harbor, the site of, I think, over a dozen fish ponds. Would this bill create an opportunity to revitalize some of those areas that are currently at state parks?
You know, I would hope so. I mean, again, I'm not with state park specifics, so I'm not sure exactly, but I would hope that, yeah, if we streamline, the process is streamlined, because the old bill had like a, call for like us to do a programmatic EIS, and it would have just been a very long kind of extensive thing. With this, I think, kind of simplifies things, has the board make certain findings. I would hope that, yeah, it can, there's hopefully to achieve that effect, yes.
Could the DLNR work with the federal government to enter onto federal land to assist in the development of fish ponds? My understanding is there were several on Ford Island. There were several going up, like the banks going up Halava. They all in parts of the district that I represent. I was really surprised to see a map from the 19th century describing the extensive network of these fish ponds.
Yeah. With the federal government lands, I mean, I don't think this would really apply. I mean, we don't have any real jurisdiction over those lands, especially in Pearl Harbor. I don't know if that specific location, though, would be helped out by this, because, that's really under the management of the Navy. I mean, even if that'd be something that I think if there was a party that wanted to do something out there, their best, I think, option would just be to speak directly to the Navy. We don't really have a say in terms of how the land is used over there. Yeah, with respect to that Pearl Harbor site is what you're referring to.
We didn't see any testimony in opposition to this, but like just knowing that the kinds of folks that do fish pond restoration, they historically aren't very happy with the state government. Will this streamline like fish ponds statewide and kind of keep everybody happy, or are we going to find some opposition later?
I don't know, because I don't know what, the fish ponds can be in varying states. It's not all fish ponds too are publicly owned, right? Some are still privately owned, but.
Many are with Bishop Estates.
Yeah, right. So this would not cover anything like that. So I don't think this would resolve any issue, those issues with the ones that aren't owned by the state. But I would hope that, yeah, with those state ones, I mean, they're still, they still have to abide by like the terms and conditions of any lease. So, you know what I'm saying, like, that would not, this doesn't change that. They still have to abide by it. So if there's an issue with that, that could still be, you know, but that's an issue with any lease we would do. You know, like, they would have to, for example, provide insurance and other requirements that come as it with being a lessee. So,
If they're with the state.
yeah, so I mean, that, it doesn't fundamentally change that. So I guess maybe to answer your question, it depends on what the issues are, right? I mean, I'm not sure exactly what the issues would be, and we'd have to just kind of take it case by case.
One of the issues is, I remember fish pond folks they didn't like state law requiring what they called a turbidity curtain. They really didn't like that they had to use modern ways to stop waves and fish from coming in when they wanted to use very traditional methods. So they're highlighting instances in which modern state law conflicted with the historic ways that these places were used and developed and maintained.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I didn't want to.
No, so I'm just trying to foresee some potential issues.
Yeah, no.
No, that's all.
Oh, okay. So just to sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. No, I guess, like I said, those are other, like, in any lease we have, a standard clause in any lease is to comply with all, you know, existing federal, state, and county laws. So, like, again, I guess that's not something we could, this measure would address directly, you know, because there, like I said, certain lease requirements that we just can't waive, and that's one of them. Now, I think that's a alternate means of, a different way to solve that, if there is one, but I'm saying not necessarily through this measure.
I understand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, members? Nope. We'll move on. Thanks very much to the testifiers. Next up, we have House Bill 2700 relating to wildfires. This establishes the Hawaii Wildfire Relief Fund and Corporation to provide compensation for property damage resulting from catastrophic wildfires in the state, and it appropriates funds. First up, we have testimony from the Office of the Governor. Mr. Oshiro, welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. Blake Oshiro, Senior Advisor for Governor Green. We stand on our written testimony providing comments. In some, we are favorable to the idea of this bill moving along for the sake of discussion, but right now we're not willing to commit one way or another on our position. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have testimony from the Public Utilities Commission. Welcome, Chair.
Chair, members of the committee, Leo Asuncion, Chair of the PUC. We'll stand on our written testimony. Basically, the form that the bill is in now, we do support. There are one more kind of minor amendment that we would like to offer, and that's in our testimony. But overall, we would like to acknowledge and thank the previous committees who looked at the amendments that we proposed at that time and incorporated into the HD1.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony from the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs. We have three different, ones from the Director, ones from the Division of Consumer Advocacy, and the others from the Office of Administrative Hearings, and we'll take them in that order. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair Pro Tem, members of the committee. My name is Nadine Ondo. I'm the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs, Commerce and Consumer Affairs. We stand on our written testimony offering comments on the bill as currently amended. We do note that we appreciate the amendments that were made by the previous committee to this measure. And I'm available for any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Next, from the DCCA Division of Consumer Advocacy. Welcome, floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Michael Angelo. I'm the Executive Director of the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs Division of Consumer Advocacy. We appreciate the amendments that were made to this bill by the previous committees. We think it is imperative that ratepayers are not expected to pay for this fund, which is a future property damage fund. You'll see in our testimony, one of the key themes is prevention. The best insurance policy is preventing these occurrences from happening and addressing this on a holistic system perspective where we're considering the entire system and the various threats that are against all of our public utilities, such as high wind events. At the end of the day, it was high winds that knocked over utility poles that at least caused some of the catastrophic wildfires, not necessarily the ones we're talking about that's still under investigation. But again, asking ratepayers to pay for this is, we appreciate the amendments that as are in the current version of the bill. Thank you.
And if you also are recommending a change, if you could cover that. However, in second to last paragraph says, however, the department respectfully recommends that the proposed paragraph 8
Yes, sorry.
D3 be amended. Could you please explain that?
For the member-owned cooperatives, yes, we're asking that they also contribute, as a member-owned cooperative, which is different than an investor-owned utility, we are asking that the amendment be, that there be an amendment that there are different contributions amounts from a member-owned cooperative versus an investor-owned utility because they have different needs and they're offered different business models.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, appreciate that. Next, we have testimony from the DCCA Office of Administrative Hearings. And next, we have testimony with comments from the Department of Budget and Finance. Next, testimony from Hawaiian Electric. Welcome. Floor is yours.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Jason Ben. I'm the Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer for Hawaiian Electric Company, testifying in strong support of HB 2700, HD1, related to future wildfires. This bill is intended to protect both the people of Hawaii and our economy from the risk of another catastrophic wildfire occurring in the future. It does so by creating a wildfire relief fund that has two principal benefits. First, it provides expedited compensation to property owners and insurers without the cost and uncertainty of litigation and regardless of cause. Secondly, HB 2700 helps mitigate the financial instability on key institutions, including the state, counties, large landowners, and utilities that can result from litigation and a rush to judgment related to catastrophic wildfires. We believe our state has a strong interest in avoiding that outcome. We appreciate the time the previous committees took in preparing HD1, and we support most of their amendments. However, we respectfully request that two of those amendments not be accepted and instead revert back to the original language of the bill. First, HD1 prohibits rate recovery of Hawaiian Electric's contribution to the fund. We believe it is reasonable to allow customer contributions to Hawaiian Electric's portion for two reasons. One, liability insurance is and historically has been included in regulated rates for electric utilities, including Hawaiian Electric. The fund is a lower cost alternative to commercial insurance or self-insurance if it was available for large losses for future catastrophic wildfires. Quotes we've received for additional wildfire insurance have been in excess of $30 million annually for $100 million in coverage. Anecdotally, I understand California premiums are even higher. The second part we'd ask that revert back is it also eliminates the presumption that the utility's conduct is reasonable and prudent if it has a PUC-approved wildfire mitigation plan. I want to clarify, this presumption is only related to reimbursing the fund, has nothing to do with lawsuits or civil liability. It's consistent with statutes in California, and it's consistent with the approach taken by FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. It is also needed to harmonize other contemplated wildfire legislation, and it removes the possibility of hindsight bias. If we all agree and work together on a mitigation plan going forward, we don't want to have to look back and say that wasn't the right plan. We believe the original bill language is reasonable with respect to both of these elements, and we respectfully request that it be restored. In short, HB 2700 provides a low-cost, rapid process to compensate property owners and insurance companies. It avoids the uncertainty of litigation that can financially destabilize utilities, large landowners, and government entities. The rising risk of catastrophic wildfire to Hawaii is a whole of society problem, as many contributing factors, including climate change, changing land use, human behavior, and other causes. Solving the impacts of climate change on our state must be addressed collectively and collaboratively. So on behalf of Hawaiian Electric and its employees who have faithfully served our communities for 132 years, mahalo for allowing me to testify in support of this important bill, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony in opposition from State Farm. Welcome, please proceed.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Matt Sujimura on behalf of State Farm. While we understand the intent of the bill, we do have concerns that the opt-out provision for landowners potentially muddies a little bit of the waters with regards to the rights for insurers who do not opt in with regard to subrogation rights affecting those properties on behalf of those property owners. So we just have concerns with regards to that, but happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sujimura. Next, we have testimony with comments from the Kauai Island Utility Cooperative. Please proceed.
Aloha, good afternoon, committee members, committee chairs, vice chairs. Beth Amaro with KIUC. We've submitted comments on this measure and are here to answer any questions you might have. Thank you very much.
Could you please summarize your testimony for those who haven't had a chance to read it?
Sure. KIUC has concerns about this measure primarily because of the potential cost, and that there is really no detail in terms of what potential cost might be to the various stakeholders. As a cooperative utility, it has been mentioned by other testifiers that we are in a very different position than HECO, and so we would like to see much more clarity around potential costs and how this fund would be managed before being able to testify either in support or against.
Thank you. Appreciate that additional information.
Thank you.
Next, we have testimony in support from the Retail Merchants of Hawai'i. Ms. Yamaki, welcome.
Aloha, good afternoon. I'm Tina Yamaki with the Retail Merchants of Hawaii, and we support the intent of this bill. You know, the recent Maui wildfires was devastating not only to the community, but families and businesses as a whole, as we all have seen in the news, and some of us even have personal experiences with family and friends. And of course, we hope this never happens again. You know, this measure is a solution in the event that we are faced with another catastrophic wildfire. And it's a good conversation to continue, because not only do we have to look at how can we prevent wildfires in the future, but also what happens when there is another one, if and when. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony with comments from the Tax Foundation of Hawaii. Mr. Yamachika, please proceed.
Good afternoon. This is Jade McMillan for Tom Yamachika on behalf of the Tax Foundation of Hawaii. We have submitted some comments on the measure, which include commentary from the Tax Foundation of Hawaii's November 30th column entitled The Lahaina Recovery Fund, which can be found on our website. We'll stand on our written comments.
Could you give the highlights of your testimony for those who didn't read it?
Yes, absolutely. So at the Tax Foundation, we've commented noting that we believe that this fund is a more innovative way to approach the recovery of Lahaina with the establishment of the Lahaina Recovery Fund. Though controversial, it is a way that the claimants, if they do decide to participate in the fund, can get money in a much shorter amount of time. They may not have to contend with attorney's fees, which could be unknown and quite large. And in addition, those who take advantage of the fund can begin moving on with their own personal recovery.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We've received written testimony from numerous individuals, 82 individuals in support, one with comments and one in opposition. Is there anyone else here wishing to testify on House Bill 2700 HD1? Please come on up. Introduce yourself and proceed.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, Evan Oy on behalf of the Hawaii Association for Justice. Respectfully apologize first of all for our late testimony. We respectfully stand in opposition of this measure. Primarily our concern is actually built subsection 18 on pages 40 through 41, which seeks to immunize contributors for future claims of property damage arising from catastrophic wildfires. HHA has always held the position that broad immunity is bad public policy. In this instance, HHA is concerned that the proposed measure will preclude any and all property damage claims against fund contributors for any disaster in the future. HHA understands the implications of this measure may have for fund contributors. However, we fail to see why broad immunity should be granted for potential substantial damage or destruction, which will be at the expense of victims. Furthermore, we're not aware of any other state which has provided broad immunity of this type when establishing a fund. The current immunity would set a dangerous precedent in this instance. Ultimately, the residents of Hawaii will be unable to seek recourse for damage to their property, and we encourage the state to protect the residents of Hawaii. We look forward to working with all involved stakeholders on this measure, and thank you for your time, committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oy. Anyone else wishing to testify on House Bill 2700 HD1? If not, are you testifying on HB 2700 HD1? No. Anyone else wishing to testify on HB 2700 HD1? If not, questions, members. Representative Ganadin.
So the Hawaiian Electric Company. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
In reviewing the testimony, there are dozens of individuals that have testified in support of this measure. I've actually got it printed out here from the Vice Chair's folder, and it seems like it's a form. And most of the testifiers are from retired employees of the Hawaiian Electric Company. I'm just gonna, it says, I'm a retired employee of Hawaiian Electric Company, employed there for X years. And then it goes on to say, provided career opportunities for our families who grew up here in the islands, some a family legacy of generations. There's a large stack of these. I'm wondering if there is going to be some sort of unintended consequence for retirees of HECO as a result of this bill that made them skittish and testify en masse. I'm also wondering if they're just nervous about possible Chapter 11 bankruptcy that might be imminent, whether we pass this or not. Basically, I'm wondering why all these retirees testified today.
Okay, so let me try to take that in pieces. I'm not aware, I don't have any reason to believe that they're testifying for any other reason than we represent 2,600 extremely hardworking utility employees and 5,000 retirees and their families that have worked very hard to help this community, that are out there in the storms and working for it, and we're a big family of multi-generation. And I think they see the benefit of this to Hawaii and to our community. I don't believe they're testifying for any other reason other than they care about the community and they're a large part of the community in every community.
Did HECO request that retirees testify in support of this measure?
HECO approached the retirees about the importance of the bill, to my knowledge, and correct? Yeah, and asked them to go to a couple information sessions about why the bill is important to Hawaii and to the company. None of it was related to financial distress of the company impacting them, but why the bill is important for Hawaii.
So should we move this forward? Are their retirement benefits in question, considering the HD1 and the modifications to this bill that discussing the ratepayers? So are their retirement benefits in question?
To my knowledge, they're not in question.
Are they in question? Should HECO enter into Chapter 11 bankruptcy?
I'm not the CFO, but to my knowledge, we have a well-funded pension plan for those retirees. They're federally protected by ERISA, so their retirement benefits are protected to some extent regardless. The extent to which I don't know. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, members?
Chair.
Yes, Representative Miyake.
Question for Hiko. Thank you
Yes,
for
sir.
being here. So this bill is being characterized as only to support Hawaiian Electric. Is it only supporting Hawaiian Electric?
Thank you for that question, Representative. No, it's not. This is about a bill to protect future wildfires for all contributors and for property owners. So I'm aware of, the bill is effectively no fault. Regardless of how it's caused, we have a lot of land in Hawaii that used to be irrigated plantation that's fallow. I'm aware of multiple cases, not electric utility related, where a wildfire started and people were harmed. Those people have no recourse, and neither do insurers, if they can't attribute the fire to a financially capable party. So there's no recourse for their uninsured losses. This bill is about covering that risk for all of Hawaii, right? And for landowners, government entities. The mere speculation of culpability is causing distress and reputational harm for all those key institutions. This bill would backstop that and help property owners. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Certainly, thank you. Any other questions, members? Question for DCCA? Director? Welcome, thanks very much for your testimony. Now, this is to focus on the future, not the recent devastating Maui wildfires, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, you're saying, however, that there's some things missing in here. It does not address the means or mechanisms to compensate for claims of property damage. Is that for the future wildfires that we still need to hash that out?
Well, so I think the purpose of the testimony is to point out that I think before we start looking at funding something in the future for future property damage arising out of future wildfires or other catastrophic events, I think part of what we were looking at was something that should be more comprehensively addressing overall property damage, which includes what's come out of the Maui wildfires that we're currently looking at. And I think it's difficult to, especially when there's so many gaps and so many holes in terms of how the funding is going to take place, how much people are going to be looking to contribute or have to ask to contribute, when we're not even dealing with what's going on now with current claims for property damage. And that was our criticism and our concern about this measure. We understand from the discussion of the intent of the proposal is that it has to do with future funding and access to capital for the utility, because when they're looking for future investors have to have some assurance that if there's something that comes up in the future, a future wildfire occurs, that there'll be an existing fund to address those catastrophic property damage claims. And that's what we understood was part of what the motivation was for this legislation. Our concern is that we are still dealing with what's going to happen with the property damage claims existing now, given the current situation with the Maui wildfires. So that was what we were trying to address.
So we really need to figure out how to resolve the issues and the responsibilities and compensation for the Maui wildfire damages. And with that, then we could then look to the future and see how best to establish a future fund, in your opinion.
That was our concern, that it wasn't comprehensive enough.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. I asked Mr. Oshiro to come up.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much for your testimony. And I appreciate your encouraging us to move this forward, to continue discussions. What would you suggest would be, I mean, this moves on, if the committee decides to move this forward, it's going to go on to finance, and then if it moves out of the House, it goes to the Senate. We've got a lot of questions that need to be answered.
Yes.
And there's a number of measures that are moving on this. My inclination is to move this forward so we have a vehicle and continued discussions, but are you of a similar mind that we really need to be addressing the responsibility and compensation for the Maui wildfires, and then with that information, then look toward the future?
Part of the comprehensive sort of discussion that we're having is looking at what is the utility going to be doing with regard to the existing claims. Not that that necessarily ties that to any of these bills as written, but from the governor's perspective, we do want to approach this much more comprehensively. We understand this particular bill is one of 3 bills that the utility is saying they really need in order to become investment grade again, because right now they're pretty much just junk bonds, right? So if they get this, then they have a chance of basically staying out of bankruptcy, is bottom line of what they're telling us. So for that reason, we are continuing those discussions. We are still interested in seeing what the more holistic package is, including some past claims. You know, this bill currently, as it's written, has a lot of blanks. And particularly on page 18, the state contribution and the appropriation remains blank. And that's a big question, because really the fund cannot exist as we understand it without the state's contribution. And so while we continue these discussions with the utility and want to see something we can present to the legislature as a whole, right now, we feel comfortable saying move this along. At some point, we'll have to plug in a number if we expect to see this bill continue to live. I don't know that we're there yet.
No, we're not there yet, yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And another question for Hawai'i Electric. I recognize that this measure focuses in the future, but clearly you've heard the commentary about the need to address the, how to resolve the claims from this most recent devastating wildfire. This places the company in a difficult position, because you're going to be asked to present your financials to those of us who have to make these tough decisions, to understand better your own company status and health. If you're asking the state to put up money, or asking the legislature to securitize future rate payments as you are in other bills, are you prepared to do that?
Well, I can't commit.
I know you're not the CFO.
I'm not, and I can't commit to that. I think the question is, okay, let me let you finish your question first.
No. Are you prepared to do that? Because it's a difficult situation, because you're gonna need to disclose some
I cannot
of your
commit
information.
for the company to. I cannot commit on behalf of the company to disclose anything more than what we file publicly.
Yeah.
I would want to take the opportunity to point out that I don't think you have to necessarily resolve the current liabilities to plan for the future. And I believe our packages, our three bills go together. How do we securitize so that we can both contribute to preventing in the future through wildfire mitigation, something we've been actively working at, and also contribute to an insurance fund that shares the risk. We are not the only party in the lawsuits from Maui. Respectfully, the state of Hawaii is a party as well, as is the county, as are the telcos, as are landowners. So this bill is about us working together to the impacts of just speculating that a party is responsible are devastating to that organization. Hawaiian Electric supports the largest warfighting command in the United States. We are a critical infrastructure provider to our customers. That includes everybody. That includes Indo-PACOM. We need access to capital. We have no credit right now. We invest in chunks and recover them 1/30th at a time. This bill and the other bills are part of a package of investments and a package of laws that will protect our ability to continue to forward energy state policy. We have the highest adoption of PV in the US. We've been moving on energy policy. We've been moving on resiliency. Without this package of bills, that will be challenging. I'm not saying it's impossible. So I really think it's about actuarial risk for all of us. The bill calls for, and we're working on what should be the initial contributions. The bill calls for a 2024 actuary study to solidify that and to determine who are the major contributors. There are hundreds of landowners today in Hawaii that own more than 500 acres of former plantation land that is filled with flammable grasses. So I think this has to be holistic. It has to be a whole of society approach. And that's
Thank you.
where I'm at.
Appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Okay.
Other questions, members? Representative Ganadin, second time around.
Sorry, I'll be quick, not to you, sir. Thank you, sorry. Mr. Oshiro. You once served here in this body.
Yes.
So, yeah, so you know that we're going to, should this move forward, we're going to debate this on the floor of the
Yes.
House of Representatives. Also, you know that there are numerous lawsuits moving forward. There's probably going to be motions to dismiss filed by the corporation or by the state to try and move some plaintiffs off of this case. So there's a lot of big decisions that the legislature is going to have to make with public money. Are you prepared to give the legislature a range of how much this is going to cost us just so that we can have a conversation about it?
Unfortunately, I can't commit to that at this point. All I can tell you is because of the legislative calendar and the deadlines you folks are presenting, we know that a bill has to move if we continue to want to have a vehicle for discussion, especially because under the 3 readings law, we can't gut and replace something right at the end, right? So for that reason, we'd like to see this bill continue to move for the sake of discussion. Unfortunately, I cannot tell you we're anywhere near the realm of giving a range or a number.
How much would it potentially cost the state to make HECO solvent? Are we talking over $100 million out of the general fund?
So we are not looking at doing anything to give to HECO in order to keep them solvent. We're looking at what are the approaches, especially for future insurance, securitization, planning, that would be necessary so that they can get investor grade status. That's all we're looking at this point. But any of that support from the administration is contingent on the idea that we need to have a better understanding of how they intend to resolve past claims. So we're not willing to issue our full support behind their 3 pieces of legislation unless and until we understand what they're going to be doing on some of the past claims.
All right, uncertainty. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other questions, members? If not, thank you very much to all the testifiers. Let's move on to the next measure. House Bill 2429 HD1 relating to emergency public assistance. This authorizes the Department of Human Services to provide temporary emergency assistance, case management, and other recovery services following the period covered by an emergency proclamation and establishes an emergency management program within the Director's office. On this measure, we have testimony from the Department of Human Services.
Good afternoon, Chair, committee
Afternoon.
members. Joseph Campos, Deputy Director, Department of Human Services, here on behalf of Director Betts. The department stands in strong support of its written testimony, and I just want to stress a few items. Primarily, within the last 5 years, the Department of Human Services has provided vital services to the people of Hawaii over many disasters and emergencies, including COVID pandemic, volcanic eruptions, flooding, and of course, the Maui wildfires. One example is during the wildfires, we conducted the Disaster SNAP program, which provided SNAP benefits to those impacted by the wildfires. In addition, because we do not have staff dedicated to disaster management, many of us have to take on additional roles. Just as an example, my day basically starts at 4:30 in the morning and ends at 10 p.m. One of the things that I have recently been tasked with is establishing a 500-unit temporary housing site on Maui for those who have been displaced. So it would really help the department to have someone dedicated to help with disaster case management and providing services to the people of Hawaii impacted by disasters. We are also asking for procurement exemption for 5 years. This will help expedite necessary procurement that we have to go through. I'm here for questions if you have any.
Thank you very much. And next we have testimony from the State Procurement Office. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure, HB 2429 HD1? If not, do you want to testify on this? Yes. This is on emergency public assistance. Please introduce yourself.
Aloha Chair, Vice Chair, and the committee. Angela Melody Young testifying in strong support of DHS and this management strategy. We should support emergency team responses, especially during a time of crisis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to testify on HB 2429 HD1? If not, I have a question. Any questions, members? Otherwise, I have a question. Department of Human Services. The testimony from the State Procurement Office is saying you shouldn't have 5 years.
Right.
They only want 2 years. Have you talked to them?
We are in the process of talking to them. We still think 5 years would be more beneficial. You know, just in 5 years, we've had multiple disasters.
Understood. But you obviously haven't gotten them to agree to that, and they're pushing for the 2 years.
Right.
Well, we're not going to, I mean, we'll see what we decide in the committee here, but I would urge the two of the agencies to come up with a consensus.
Yes.
So that we don't get conflicting recommendations from two different departments here at the Ledge. I think that's just, it's not very helpful.
Understood.
So I appreciate you continuing the discussions with them.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Any other
thank you.
questions on 2429? If not, we'll move on. Thank you. Next, we have House Bill 1778, HD1, relating to tobacco products. This amends existing law starting July 1, 2026, regarding preemption of local ordinances and regulations regulating the sale of cigarettes, tobacco products, electronic smoking devices as a matter of statewide concern, to clarify that the state's preemption power extends solely to the taxation of these products and allows counties to adopt ordinances that regulate the sale of these products, that do not conflict with and are more stringent than the state law that governs smoking. Prohibits the counties from enacting an ordinance or regulation that imposes a fee or tax on these products. So first up, we have testimony from the Attorney General. Welcome, please proceed.
Afternoon, Chair, members. My name is Rich Stacy. I'm a Deputy Attorney General with the Tobacco Enforcement Unit. Not much here, drastically changed from the first version. So basically, we just suggested an edit. The 328J is actually about smoking and where you're not supposed to smoke. So we suggest adding reference to smoking in the new preemption exemption. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay, thanks very much. Next, we have testimony in support from Sue Lee Loy, a council member. Next, testimony in support from the Department of Health. Welcome, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair Tarnas and Pro Tem Vice Chair Ganoden and members of the committee. I'm Lola Irvin representing Director Kenny Fink, and we do support HB 1778 HD1. The Department of Health is tasked with, and we are responsible for assuring the health of people in Hawaii and also to advance health equity and to address the social determinants of health. So therefore, we do support returning county authorities so that they can protect their keiki. And we do want to note that prior to Act 206, Session Laws of Hawaii 2018, they were the counties were really progressively passing smoke-free rules, and were actually the first to pass smoke-free workplace laws. We have provided in our testimony some data showing that there are also geographic differences in terms of smoking rates for adults, as well as then for our keiki. Sometimes the 2021 Youth Risk Behavior Survey is cited, and we do provide an explanation that the timing of the survey was during the fall rather than the spring. That's an exception because of the pandemic. It was also after the youth had been rather isolated, and we know that vaping is a social activity. And so the rates are lower, and so we think that there was a dampening effect on the responses we got. Nevertheless, we do see that there's higher rates of vaping for Hawaii County, Maui County, and Kauai compared to City and County of Honolulu. And so much like the Attorney General's office, we do provide amendment suggestions that just the whole of 328J-11.5 be deleted, and that section 328J-15 remain unamended. And thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony and support from the Hawaii Public Health Institute.
Good afternoon, Chair Tarnas, members of the committee. Peggy Mirzwa with the Hawaii Public Health Institute. We're in strong support of this measure. The bill returns the county's ability to regulate tobacco sales, something they were doing successfully up until 2018. They are not trying to tax or surcharge, only the state has that ability per our Constitution. The counties just want to enact laws that they have identified as best for their public health of their communities. We asked the committee to consider changing the effective date. Currently, it reads as July 1, 2026. We recommend an effective date of January 1, 2025. That date would give retailers roughly 7 months to deplete their stock. Bill passes in June 2024, and then there are roughly 6 months to sell until January 1, 2025. And then the local ordinances actually add on an additional 42 days. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony in opposition from the Hawaii Energy Marketers Association.
Afternoon, Chair.
Afternoon.
Members of the committee, Myung-Oh here on behalf of Hawaii Energy Marketers Association. We stand on a written testimony in opposition, primarily given the fact that this proposal does disrupt the current regulatory framework for the control of tobacco products. Right now, we feel that current system is working for our members, which operate statewide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony in opposition from the Cigar Association of America. Welcome. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair, committee members. William Gu appearing on behalf of the Cigar Association of America. Cigar Association stands on its written testimony opposing the bill, preferring instead the existing law, which is a total state preemption, in order to ensure uniformity in the regulation of tobacco products. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Next, we have testimony and support from Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. Welcome. Please proceed.
Aloha, Chair, Pro Tem Vice Chair, and members of the committee. Liza Ryan Gill with Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. Happy to be standing here yet again on this bill. We tried a new strategy this year, which was listening to our local counties on what they wanted. They had been coming to us for years saying, we need action on this, our kids need action on this. Some of them are not able to use the restroom at their high school for fear of being exposed to vapes. Some of those bathrooms have been closed, so they can't even use a bathroom within their school. So this is an issue that really hits home, and you'll notice, there is one youth that is in the room right now. They're at school, they're trying to learn, and this is impacting their ability to do so. We very quickly worked with our youth-led campaign to move a bill at the City and County of Honolulu. We worked with them in Hawaii County. They knocked it out of the park. They did an amazing job. And what we're trying to do is honor their wishes and say, yes, we want to return this back to you so that you can have your schools back, you can have your friendships back, you can have healthy lungs as you play sports, and really listen to them because, like we said, they're at school, they're not in this room, but we always want to make sure that their voices are heard.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony and support from the Hawaii State Teachers Association. Next, we have, are they in Zoom? No. Osa Tui? No. Okay. Next, we have testimony and support from the American Lung Association. Pedro Haro. Please proceed on Zoom.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair. Pedro Haro with the American Lung Association. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify. We stand on a written testimony. I just wanted to add, you see a lot of opposition on this particular bill, and you're seeing them come worldwide, and there's a reason for that. Because tobacco companies cannot work as effectively at the local level, which is why local jurisdictions have been so successful in being able to pass local ordinances that then are taken up by states all over the country. It is way more difficult to exert money and influence at the local level, where people are more tied to their communities. This is what this is about on the opposition. You're going to be presented with data about declining rates of vaping. You want to note that that data was collected during the pandemic when children were learning at home. Therefore, that year is going to be an anomaly in every single piece of data that you see. And then you're also going to be told about how the UK is using them for as prescriptions, and we should model the UK. The UK banned flavored vaping and certain types of tobacco for the entire country just a few weeks ago. So make sure that you keep moving this bill forward for the right reasons and not for the nefarious reasons that we know that a lot of tobacco companies want us to move this for. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony in opposition from Team Hustle Vape Spot, Irene Khalili. Next, we have testimony in support from Samantha Lay, Coalition for a Tobacco-Free Hawaii Youth Council. Please proceed.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Samantha Lay, and I'm here testifying on behalf of the Coalition for Tobacco-Free Hawaii's Youth Council in strong support of HB 1778 HD1. A little bit about us. The Coalition for Tobacco-Free Hawaii Youth Council is a nationally recognized group of youth leaders fighting to envision and create a Hawaii centered on uplifting community public health and well-being beyond the reaches of big tobacco. Our council, comprised of over 80 middle, high school, and college students, fills itself with members from across Hawaii's counties. We've been working diligently and collectively to end the sale of flavored tobacco products for the past 6 years. Since 2018, the counties have not been able to pass stricter legislation than the state regarding tobacco sales, ever since the legislature declared that the state should take hold of this matter. While we have been close to passing legislation to end the sale of flavored tobacco sales multiple times since then, in the end, they failed, leaving us with flavors inflicting harm amongst our youth, like rainbow candy, fruit punch, ocean sonic, and pog, just to name a few examples. Not to mention, menthol luring youth into a lifelong nicotine addiction. Over the past few months, the city and county of Honolulu and the county of Hawaii have passed bills to end flavored tobacco sales in their communities, thus sending a clear message to the state to protect our keiki statewide or restore their authority to regulate tobacco sales. With these county councils standing by the youth and community advocates in passing these bills, we strongly ask you to do the same. We do, however, request that you remove the language that would postpone the effective date for 2 years. Tobacco retailers will have plenty of time to sell their stock of flavored tobacco products with the grace periods that the counties already have in their bills, an additional reason to why we need to pass this bill. According to industry figures, tobacco retailers turn over their inventory multiple times in any given quarter. Delaying the effective date of House Bill 1778 HD1 will negatively impact the keiki in Hawaii. Please consider putting people over profits and removing this language by passing HB 1778 HD1. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony with comments from the Taxpayers Protection Alliance, Lindsay Stroud. Next, we have testimony in opposition from Retail Merchants of Hawaii, Ms. Yamaki.
Aloha and good afternoon again. I'm Tina Yamaki with the Retail Merchants of Hawaii, and we stand in opposition to this measure. You know, Hawaii's tobacco sales brought in over $83 million in revenue in the state in 2023, and that just came out. That number is down by about $10 million from the previous year. And last year, the legislature passed a bill for vaping taxes. So we're looking at over $100 million that could potentially go away, especially if all the counties ban flavored cigarettes and vaping products. So what does this mean for retailers? Businesses are concerned that if there is a ban, how will small locally owned vape and smoking businesses survive? They're going to close. They're going to be putting out moms, dads, grandparents, people who depend on that job to survive. They're going to be out of a job and unemployed. What is the state funded programs? How are they going to be downsized or cut from these? Because we know monies from this goes to things like cancer research and things like that. And how is the state going to make up for that shortfall? And what is the cost going to be to us as businesses? And anytime you touch retail, your prices go up, your spam goes up, the price of clothing, rice, everything. You know, people are still going to find a way to vape and smoke. They're going to go to military bases, illegal black markets, or they're going to try and make it themselves, because we can all find recipes on YouTube, and probably they're not going to do it correct, and we're going to see more people in the hospitals. The concern is to deter youth from from obtaining smoking and vaping products. Then the focus should be on cracking down on those who are illegally and intentionally letting minors obtain these programs or products. And we are not the ones selling to those who are under 21. They come in with their parents or older sibling or friends. If they're in there and they ask them, choose one, we don't sell it to them. But if an adult comes in and purchases something and they walk out of the store, we don't know what happens to that product once it leaves our store, and they could be giving it to a minor then. We wonder why the focus is not on stricter laws and consequences aimed at minors who are vaping and those who purchase products for the minors to make them accountable for their actions. Why is the Department of Education not cracking down on those vapes on campuses? If so many students are doing this, why are the adults who can legally purchase these items be denied if the aim is at the minors? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have testimony in support from the Hawaii Primary Care Association. Testimony in support from the Hawaii Public Health Association. Testimony in support from the Hawaii Substance Abuse Coalition. Testimony from Shani Carvalho, Kohala Health. Please proceed.
Tarnas, I'm going to do via Zoom at the end.
You can do it right now.
Okay, great. Aloha nui kako. My name is Shani Carvalho of Pa'awilo, Hamakua. I serve my community as a certified tobacco treatment specialist at Hamakua Kohala Health, located in the rural areas of Honoka'a, Waimea, Kohala, and Lapahoihoi on Hawaii Island. And I strongly support HB 1778 HD1. Over the years, Hawaii Island has led the way in passing laws at the county level, such as raising the age from 18 to 21, smoke and vape-free environments, including smoke-free cars with minors. At the present time, while we holomua to protect our keiki once again against big tobacco and vaping companies, we kindly ask your continued support and passing of this bill to restore local control back to the counties to regulate these tobacco bills. As a reminder, 1 in every 5 students ages 11 through 14 years old currently vape. 1 in every 3 high school students currently vape. Last week, a 12-year-old girl on our island found unresponsive after vaping. In closing, as a mother of 4, ages 6 through 16, I again humbly ask for your continued support to pass this bill with an amended start date of January 1, 2025. Please choose our keiki. There is no price on their heads. Let us protect them at the county level as we have historically done so with success. Bill 102 to end the sale of flavored tobacco has already been signed by Mayor Mitch Roth. We are Makauko. We are ready. Please choose our keiki. Mahalo piha kako.
Mahalo. Next, we have testimony and support from Zoe Slentz. Welcome. Please proceed.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Zoe Slentz, and I'm a senior in high school, and I'm grateful to be here in front of you guys today in support of House Bill 1778. I was always aware that tobacco wasn't healthy, but it was not until a few years ago when I witnessed firsthand its widespread effects. When she was just 14 years old, one of my close friends in elementary school turned to vaping to cope with her volatile home life. My heart shattered when she told me she didn't quite understand the severity that these products have on one's health when she began, as she started with a seemingly harmless flavored product. Since she is unable to play the sport that she grew up with her entire life, and now her life just revolves around when she can use her vape. She is addicted like so many other keiki due to these flavored products. Losing part of a friend due to addiction is painful and is something I would never wish upon anybody. And it's not just a school problem, it's an everywhere problem. Because vapes, namely flavored vapes, are easy to pick up and difficult to quit, they directly continue Big Tobacco's malicious cycle to ensure the longevity of their business. Approximately 95% of smokers start before the age of 21, and 80% of these individuals begin with a flavored product. Big Tobacco strategically markets flavored products to young people because they are the base of the industry, which was once admitted by executives from the industry a couple decades ago. On the outside, flavors seem like a fun way to smoke due to the calculated choices of colors, shapes, and other advertising strategies. However, the purpose of flavors, including menthol, is to mask the harsh taste of smoke and addictive chemicals found in vapes. It's also important to note that flavored tobacco is strategically placed in convenience stores. For example, it can be found next to candy or even stocked at the eye level of 10 to 13-year-olds. Without coercing users to start young, there will be no future consumers, thus future business. House Bill 1778 would give the counties authority to regulate tobacco sales, which would further the objective to create a tobacco-free the first tobacco-free generation in Hawaii. Ultimately, it's not about choice, it's about coercion. I urge you to support the passage of House Bill 1778 to address the youth vaping epidemic. Unfortunately, everybody in here will likely know somebody, just as I do, that will face the negative consequences of deceit and addiction if this bill isn't passed. Because at the end of the day, we risk losing 21,000 youth alive today in Hawaii alone, who are estimated to die in the future of a tobacco-related illness if we don't act soon. Thank you and mahalo.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Appreciate you being here today. Next, we have testimony from Kishia Madriaga. Zoom? Yes.
Aloha Chair, Taranis, and members of the Committee of Judiciary and Hawaii Affairs. My name is Kisha Madriaga, and I am a 5th grade student at Waimea Elementary School. I am also a part of the Hawaii Island Youth Academy. The Hawaii Island Youth Academy, HAIA for short, was formed in August 2022. Utilizing the students of Hawaii Island who joined the Youth Council for a Tobacco-Free Hawaii. The intentions and purpose of creating HAIA was to empower youth participants in reaching goals of ending the youth vaping epidemic, as well additionally giving them a voice to recognize and bring awareness to importance of mental health and well among Hawaii appeal. We are in strong support of HB 1778 HD1, which restores the county's ability to regulate the sales of tobacco products. Here in Hawaii County, our youth of HAIA and many members of the Coalition for Tobacco-Free Hawaii Island recently worked to pass Bill 102, which would end the flavored sales of flavored tobacco products. We need that local authority to be restored to our county in order to have Bill 102 go into effect. I urge our policymakers to recognize the urgent need for action to support HB 1778 by restoring that much needed local control our county to regulate tobacco products. We can protect our OPO, improve public health, and create a brighter future for our community. Please take action into consideration our education and our future. Let's work together to make our state a place where healthy living is prioritized. By passing HB 1778, we'll show our keiki of Hawaii that their voice truly matters in making a difference and improve to them that you are committed to making their future a better tomorrow. Mahalo for your time to testify.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony from Lorraine Scanlon in opposition. Next, we have testimony in support from Kealoha Madriaga. Isha, is Kealoha there with you?
Yes, sorry, I'm going to change my name.
Okay, you don't need to. Just go ahead and turn the camera on. We can listen to Kealoha.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Aloha mai kako, Chair Tarnas, and members of the Committee of Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs. My name is Kealoha Madriaga, and I reside in the small town of Kamuela on Hawaii Island. You have my written testimony, and I stand in strong support of HB 1778 HD1. Hawaii County has worked hard for the past years passing bills to protect our keiki. Coalition members of Tobacco-Free Hawaii Island have worked to pass laws raising the age to purchase tobacco products to 21 years old, establishing clean air laws and smoke-free cars while keiki are present. With the implementation of HB 1778 HD1 as a County of Hawaii, we can address the health needs of our communities quickly. Hawaii County has the highest rates of ESD use among youth. Our keiki should not be the target of this marketing scheme. It is crucial that we take action to protect our keiki from the harmful effects of tobacco use. We must wake up and make better decisions and protect our keiki. This is a step in the right direction towards achieving our goal. Our keiki need this win, as they have all worked hard. We kindly ask you to make that change of the effective date to January 1st, 2025. By passing this legislation sends a strong, clear message to the public and our appeal that our state is committed to uplifting the health and well-being of its residents and showing the community health is more important than tobacco products. Mahalo for your time for testifying.
Thank you for testifying. You've done Kamuela proud. That's my hometown. Okay, anyone else wishing to testify on HB 1778 HD1? Please, introduce yourself. Please proceed.
Angela Melody Young on behalf of CARES and strong support. So this bill is about preemption as it relates to smoking vapes. Why is preemption important? And as someone who is not a lawyer, who has to read the law, it took a long time to interpret it correctly without distorting it. What is preemption? Preemption is the passage of a law at the federal or state level which makes it illegal.
Could you focus on what you think about this bill?
Yes, so I'm in support of the preemption because preemption makes it illegal for lower levels of government to enact stronger laws, right? So preemption in the tobacco industry tactic removes the community's rights to enact local smoke-free air laws. If there is a state law that is preempting a county law from enacting, we must address it. This past year, the county level enacted a law about stopping the sale of electronic nicotine devices or vapes. Now we need the state law to allow the county to do that. And if you read this chapter, 328J-15 county ordinances, nothing in this chapter shall be construed to supersede or in any manner affect a county smoking ordinance, provided that the ordinance is at least as protective of the rights of non-smokers as this chapter. This law was enacted in 2018 by Act 206, House Bill 1895. And so this is in alignment with preemption and how rules go. Federal can enact a law and a state can be just as strict, but it can't be looser. I think that this is what the county and the state law within this dynamic of this subject matter should try to match as well, is that the state is setting a standard with the smoking ordinance, and the county can be just as strict and protective, or stricter and more protective, but it cannot be looser. Yes. But it cannot be looser. So this is a subject matter of smoking electronic nicotine vapes. It's something of a priority to the Keiki Caucus and was previously a Hawaii Children and Youth priority, and so we are in support to protect the students of Hawaii.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to testify on HB 1778 HD1? If not, questions, members? Representative Gannon.
To the Department of Health.
Yes, sir.
We're seeing significant support for the ability for counties to essentially do a double tax. Could we articulate this as a sort of secondary tax?
This isn't a tax. Just to be clear, this bill, it makes it clear that the counties do not have the ability to tax.
Correct. And the counties constitutionally do not have the ability to tax.
Okay, that clarifies it for me. One further question.
Sure, sure.
Thank you, Chair. Will this bill affect the way the Department of Health administers the Tobacco Prevention and Control Trust Fund? So we had a few people testify that I think are probably their organizations and the health centers that they work with are partially funded by that trust fund. Will that affect this trust fund? I know a lot of states around the country have moved that money around to serve all kinds of different purposes.
Oh, Pro Tem Vice Chair, thank you very much for the question. And that is a wonderful question. Hawaii is one of the few states that remains that is using the tobacco MSA for tobacco prevention and control. And actually, we will probably be providing the counties more support if that comes up, that the counties are being more progressive with passing rules and ordinances. Yes, the county grantees that spoke up are actually cessation providers, and also there are county prevention providers who are providing youth prevention programs through an evidence-based Stanford curriculum that's been adapted for Hawaii and actually incorporated the Olelo Hawaii into it.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Thanks. And just, I should have mentioned, there are additional written testimony on this measure, 53 in support and 4 in opposition. These are all written testimony. Any other questions, members? Nope. If not, thank you very much to all the testifiers. Let's move on. House Bill 1954 HD1 relating to the Community Outreach Court. This permanently establishes and appropriates funds for the Community Outreach Court as a division of the District Court of the First Circuit. On this measure, we have testimony from the judiciary. Fight your way through the crowd. Come on up here.
Good afternoon,
Afternoon.
Chair Tarnas and committee members. I'm Brooke Mamizuka, Probation Administrator. The judiciary strongly supports House Bill 1954, House Draft 1. The Community Outreach Court program has changed many lives. It's helped struggling individuals get back on their feet, gain self-esteem, improve their living conditions, family life, and community. In late 2022, the Community Outreach Court assisted a participant with services. I spoke to him yesterday, and he's still doing well. This individual was a single father that was caring for his child and having to take his child back and forth to school. He did it independently, but needed assistance. We're able to give him services, and we were able to help him with his driver's license. So now he has the mobility and independence to take care of his child. The Community Outreach Court has done some tremendous work in the community, but we need stability, and we need funding to continue the work that we're doing. This bill will help the Community Outreach Court with staffing, funding, and resources. Right now, our court personnel are not exclusive to the Community Outreach Court. Operating a court in the community requires equipment, personnel, security, tables, chairs, tents, paper, computers, Wi-Fi. We're borrowing judicial clerks, bailiffs, social workers, equipment, and resources from courts and programs to sustain the Community Outreach Court. As we do that, it leaves gaps in our courtrooms and in our divisions. The Community Outreach Court program is a collaboration between the 3 agencies, Prosecutor's Office, the Public Defenders, and the Judiciary. And it's through the joint agreement that the program is able to be sustained. This legislation would further sustain the program. It would lock in how we get our referrals. It would also increase the timeliness of their referrals. The program provides houseless population access to the courts and links them to vital services. We have 24 partner agencies, and we have courts in Kaneohe, in Waianae, and Honolulu. The purpose of the bill is to permanently establish those appropriate monies and funding and positions that we need to sustain the court. We help individuals with SNAP benefits, replacement IDs, employment, clothing, transportation, car seats, food, housing, school supplies, bed linens, bus passes, and wound care. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much for your great work. Next, we have testimony support from John Mizuno, Governor's Coordinator, State Office on Homelessness and Housing Solutions. Testimony support from the Department of Human Services. Testimony and support from the Department of Law Enforcement. Testimony and support from the Office of Public Defender. Welcome. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, committee members. I'd echo most of the sentiments of Ms. Mamizuka.
Take the opportunity to introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry, Johnny Kanaga, Public Defender.
If you haven't met him, here's the guy.
Yeah,
he runs this department of Public Defender.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to stand primarily on our written testimony, but what Brooke was talking about is this program helps so many people, and it helps at a fundamental level. So this is one of the basic needs that people need help with. And this program needs stability. I think the testimony that we've submitted and also the preamble to the bill has the numbers. So this program has touched so many people, and you know it needs to continue. It needs stability and it needs funding. So we're in strong support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony and support from the Honolulu Department of the Prosecuting Attorney. It's great to see you agreeing with the public defender, prosecuting attorney.
And the judges.
Well, let's just keep it going
judiciary.
then,
Let's
shall
keep
we?
it going. Go ahead, Brooks.
Chair Tarnas, I appreciate it. Members of the committee, thank you very much for the opportunity to testify. Brooks Bear with the Department of the Prosecuting Attorney. Brooks agrees with Brooke and agrees with the public defender that this program certainly has helped a lot of people. And it's resolving cases that might not otherwise be resolved. It's hooking people up with jobs. It's finding them some housing. It's a wonderful partnership with the Public Defender's Office and with the judiciary. We hope that this can continue as it already exists and perhaps even expand where possible. We are in full support of the funding component of this bill. However, we think the bill as written is not needed because it does attempt to codify outreach court, and we think that that was already done. Act 55 in 2017 codified outreach court and established the purposes and the procedures for a successful program. So with this in mind, as you know, we have submitted a proposed draft, and that draft maintains the funding and positions and hopefully funding for growth and the needed things that you've heard the program could use. But it removes the language that we deem to be unnecessary. I have been there for outreach court in Waianae, in Kaneohe, in Honolulu. Those are the places they still have outreach court right now. I was even in Wahiwa, where they used to have outreach court. Maybe it can go back to that community. It is indeed a very successful program, and we hope it continues in its current form, hopefully with the funding from this bill.
Thanks very much. Next, we have testimony and support from Partners in Care, Laura Ellis Thielen. And we have testimony and support from Tricia Chong, Carrie Ann Shirota, and Sydney Story. Carrie Ann? Welcome. Please proceed.
Aloha, Chair, committee members. I like to believe that I'm with the Fantastic Four. We are in support of this measure at Community Outreach Court. We do have some recommendations. One, that we expand eligibility criteria for acceptance into the Community Outreach Court. Second, that we require the judiciary to submit an annual report to the state legislature highlighting demographic data relating to program participants, those who are rejected from the program, the reasons for rejection, benchmarks and outcomes of the Community Outreach Court. And finally, that we require the judiciary down the road, maybe 3 to 5 years, to conduct a cost-benefit analysis, a third-party evaluation. And we say this because we really think it's important when we're using public tax dollars to evaluate programs to ensure that they are effective. There's similarly, right now, there's a bill, as you know, that's moved out of committee to evaluate weed and seed. Again, anytime we have governmental resources, is it the best use of our funds? And I will just add, all of the things that have been mentioned here, and having worked for a reintegration program on the island of Maui, housing, employment, family support, counseling, treatment, we need to focus again on diversion. And in this situation, people already have a conviction technically, but we need to start putting it back into the community so that they don't have a criminal record. But we do support it with these other measures for transparency, accountability, and also just effectiveness and evaluation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rhoda. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure, HB 1954 HD1? If not, questions, members? Thank you for the testifiers. Great program. Let's move forward. HB 2451, relating to mental health. This bill authorizes examination of defendants via telehealth. It amends conditions for certain petty misdemeanors, release or examination of fitness to proceed, and appropriates funds. First up, testimony from the judiciary. Got to pick who's going to come up, huh? Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair Pro Tem, and members of the committee. My name is Jennifer Wong. I am the staff attorney for the criminal divisions for the First Circuit Court. We stand in strong support of the intent of this measure and most of the provisions as indicated in our testimony. We would like to request the amendment that is specifically set out in our testimony. This amendment language is critical to ensuring that defendants who are diverted from the criminal justice system under Act 26, which is 704-421, are properly evaluated and assessed to determine what types of services they may require and be offered, whether inpatient, outpatient, or community-based services upon the dismissal of the case. Otherwise, we are just going to be back in the circle of having these people come in and out if we can't get them some types of services. That is all I have. I can remain and answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Yes, we have testimony and support from the State Department of Health. Welcome. Please proceed.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair, members. I'm Courtney Matsu, Medical Director and Acting Administrator for Adult Mental Health Division. We stand on our written testimony in support of this bill. We did offer a few amendments, primarily technicalities, to broaden the scope of examiners appointed under Chapter 704 rather than the specific 704-404. We also requested to add facilities under the jurisdiction of the Department of Correction and Rehabilitation, as well as the request to keep the time frame to report back to the court at 7 days rather than the suggested amendment to 14. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next we have testimony from the Office of the Public Defender.
Good afternoon, committee members. Johnny Kanaga, Public Defender. I'm going to stand on our written testimony. Just would highlight one thing, that the telehealth expansion of the use of telehealth for facility examination is very important. There's often times where it's hard to gain access to facilities. Providers may be unable to get physically down to the facilities easily. So to facilitate this and to expedite the examination of these individuals, the use of telehealth is very important. I'm available for questions if you have any.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ikanaga. Next, we have testimony with comments from the Hawaii Disability Rights Center. Lou Erdeshek.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Representative Tarnas and committee members. I'm Lou Erdeshek. Telehealth is great, especially in the medical setting, the clinical setting. In fact, it's probably got more potential than we've tapped. And I'm not against the idea of doing telehealth for these fitness examinations. I understand there's a backlog and this could help with that. The only point that I would make, and the only caution I would suggest, is that you're trying to get into somebody's head, so to speak, when you're a fitness examiner. You're trying to understand their state of mind, their overall condition. And so it's not a casual conversation. It's not even like testifying at a legislative hearing. So sometimes in person, you pick up on nuances and things that you don't necessarily pick up on a Zoom meeting or on video. So whether it's in this bill or through some other mechanism, if you're going to advance this proposal, I would just urge that there be some sort of protocols and understanding in place so that we don't end up basically swapping speed for accuracy, because the results of these decisions are very important. So that's my input, Representative.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony and support from the Hawaii Substance Abuse Coalition and testimony in opposition from Derek Harlan. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on HB 2451? If not, questions, members? Nope. Okay, we'll move on. Thanks very much to the testifiers. Next up, House Bill 2159 relating to mental health. This measure requires the Department of the Attorney General to assist with the preparation and filing of petitions for assisted community treatment and with the presentation of the case, unless declined by the petitioner. It repeals language entitling the subject of a petition for assisted community treatment to legal representation by a public defender. It provides a mechanism for the automatic screening of certain nonviolent defendants for involuntary hospitalization or assisted community treatment. It authorizes courts to require certain probation violators to undergo a mental health evaluation and treatment program as a condition of continued probation. And beginning July 1, 2024, and occurring every 10 years thereafter, requires the Department of Health to convene an advisory committee on mental health code review. First up, we have testimony from the Attorney General. Welcome, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. Deputy Attorney General Ian Suda. We're providing comments on this bill. There were several amendments to this version from the original. Of those, the jurisdictional exemption for family court cases and the criminal penalty decrease for certain types of escape may necessitate additional readings. So we're recommending that those sections either be removed or you schedule additional readings. But I do want to note that a majority of the mental health and assisted community treatment amendments do not appear to share this issue. I'm available for question.
Thank you. Next, we have testimony and support from the judiciary. Welcome.
Good afternoon again, Chair, Vice Chair Pro Tem, members of the committee. My name is Jennifer Wong. I am the staff attorney for the criminal divisions of the First Circuit Court. The judiciary stands in support of the intent of this measure, and specifically in strong support of sections 8 through 10 and part 4 of the bill. I won't repeat what I just said earlier. However, with respect to the probation provisions, I just wanted to point out that those provisions are to permit the court to, instead of revoking somebody who's violated, they get to basically hold that probation violation or that motion to revoke until we get them diverted into a assessment and determine whether or not their mental disease disorder or defect may have affected their ability to comply with those probation terms and conditions. If it did, then we can get them the proper treatment, and then we can basically move on off of the revocation. If we can't, if it's not due to that mental disease disorder or defect, then we can go forward with the revocation based on the violation that they already did. It's not to take we're not going to violate them because they didn't comply with the mental health treatment that we think that they might have to have. I just wanted to clear that up. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wong. Next, we have support, testimony support from the Hawaii State Department of Health. Welcome, please proceed.
Good afternoon, chair members. Dr. Brenton Ewan, I'm the medical director at the Hawaii State Hospital. We stand on our written testimony, but just in brief, we recognize assisted community treatment as being a potentially highly effective means by improving health outcomes and treatment adherence for patients suffering from serious mental illness such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. As far as the legal aspects of the proceedings and who's actually involved, we definitely feel that the involvement of the DAGs is crucial to act as a liaison for clinicians who might not be familiar with the legal landscape of how to go about pursuing assisted community treatment. But beyond that, as far as the use of a public defender, we defer to the legal experts and to the Department of the Attorney General. I'm available if you have any questions from a clinical standpoint.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony and support from the Office of the Public Defender.
Good afternoon, Chair Tarnas and other committee members. Johnny Kinaga, Public Defender. So I'm going to stand on our written testimony. Would highlight the one section that we have a particular interest in is the removal of the, or the amendment to 802-1, which would remove the right to a public defender for subjects of the assisted community treatment petitions. And that would be consistent with the rest of the statute, assisted community treatment statute, which appoints a GAL, not a public defender. Previously, the statute did appoint a public defender, and amendments were made to appoint a GAL instead. So this amendment to 802-1 would be consistent with the rest of the statute at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony in opposition from Lou Erdachek, Hawaii Disability Rights Center.
Yes, thank you again, Representative Torres and committee members. I am really concerned about this bill. I've been around for a long time and was one of the stakeholders who helped draft the initial ACT legislation. I think ACT is a great program. It helps a lot of people. There's no question about that. But we're concerned about protecting their legal rights. And so when ACT was first created, the public defender was appointed to represent the respondents in those cases. Then a couple of years ago, the legislator made the decision to remove the right to representation. The argument that was made was that, you have some sort of poor mother on the one side who doesn't know what to do with her son who has a mental illness, and some tricky, aggressive public defender is knocking out the case on a technicality, and they weren't getting treated. So the legislature then substituted a GAL, who may be a lawyer, but is not representing them as a lawyer. It's one more person looking out for the so-called best interest, which means, you probably ought to take your meds, which frankly may be true. But what this bill does is appoint the Attorney General to now represent the petitioner. Now, having the AG represent them in and of itself is not a bad idea. They probably could help them. But if you're going to reinstate the right, if you're going to add to the right to get represented and have the full force of the Attorney General representing the petitioners, then I think you're running into serious due process issues by not restoring the right to be represented by court-appointed counsel, whether it's a public defender or not. I mean, I see value in having the AG involved, but I think you got to have a lawyer on both sides and then let them both present the case. Make it like every other case in court where you got lawyers on both sides and they can argue it out, and then ultimately the judge makes a decision. That would be, to me, the appropriate way to go. But if you don't, I think there's serious constitutional violations that may be coming up. The rest of the bill, I think, actually is good. I like the idea of the additional screening for the act. I think that will bring more into the system where they can get treated. I think the flexibility to dismiss in the case of nonviolent petty misdemeanors where their fitness can't be restored is an excellent idea. And putting people on probation and requiring mental health treatment, I think is probably good for everyone. The one issue I had was that there was a condition which said that if the person couldn't benefit from the mental health treatment, then their probation could be revoked. That seems a little unfair. I mean, if it turns out that the treatment is ineffective and the defendant is otherwise compliant, I'm not sure it's fair to revoke their probation. So I would take a look at that provision. So I think the optics of this bill, Part 1 says the petitioner now gets a lawyer, and Part 2 says you don't get a lawyer. I'm more concerned about substance than optics, but when you juxtapose Part 1 against Part 2, I think it's a serious deprivation of people's rights, and I hope that you'll give that due consideration before you take action, Chair.
Thank you. Next, we have testimony from the ACLU of Hawaii.
Aloha, Chair, committee members, Carrie Ann Shirota on behalf of the ACLU of Hawaii. We strongly oppose part of this measure, and it relates to the unconstitutional provision of not allowing a person to have legal counsel. As has been just shared with you, there is a severe imbalance of power here. You now have the Attorney General's office in a family court proceeding that's not public, and you have a person who likely is indigent, may have a mental illness and/or occurring disorder. A guardian ad litem represents in the best interest of the individual, but that's different than having legal counsel to ensure that that person's constitutional rights are protected. This potential act order could involve forced treatment or involuntary treatment, and that is a fundamental liberty interest to be able to choose to take medication or not to take medication.
And while the court may mandate that, there must be strict procedural requirements in place. And I just want to point out in our testimony, reasonable minds differ, attorneys may have differences of opinions, but in 2021, the Attorney General's office pointed out in their testimony that when they decided to remove legal counsel or the public defenders, that they recommend removal of the right to counsel be deleted from the bill because of the fact that it would subject people, violate their due process rights. That same year in 2021, the Department of Health also expressed concerns about the lack of legal counsel, stating that this would not assure their right to self-determination and representation during proceedings, and that there should be a careful balance. Now, we understand that the Office of Public Defender, reading the Constitution, states that this relates to, right to counsel relates to persons who are being confined. But again, when you look at the liberty that's being infringed upon, and we're not suggesting that it absolutely needs to be a public defender, we're suggesting to have balance and to protect the fundamental rights of individuals to have legal counsel present for the individual if they so choose so and they are indigent. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify.
Certainly, thank you very much. Next, we have testimony in opposition from Raylan Yeomans. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify on HB 2159 HD1? Please proceed.
Aloha, Angela Melody Young, on behalf of CARES, wishing to comment. So I'm not sure if I'm in support or not in support just yet. So there are two components to this measure, the medical and the legal component. So community order to treat is the legal component, and the medical component is the psychiatric advance directives. And this measure has a few things to it and requires work with the AG to assist with the preparation of filings of petitions for assisted community treatment and with the presentation of the case. This bill is to get patients psychiatric help if they are refusing treatment and if they are a danger to society. For example, it could be those suffering from diminishing mental health conditions and are debilitated by a substance abuse disorder or addiction, in which they are not able to cognitively function appropriately to contribute in a positive and healthy way to society. So the CTO's community treatment orders are the legal mechanism, right, by which an individual with a mental illness and a history of noncompliance and potential for violence, and so the legal component can mandate that they undergo psychiatric treatment in an outpatient setting. And the community treatment order is a legal mechanism to enable the treatment. So even if the doctors want to do something without legal statutory provisions, there is no way to enforce a medical procedure. That's why you need both the legal and the medical component. Secondly, we have the medical component, which is the psychiatric advance directives. And it is a legal tool which allows a person with mental illness to state their preference for treatment in advance of a crisis. And this measure will serve as a way to protect society and the patients to get psychiatric care. So this measure, if they're decompensating ultimately and they don't get medication, they're impaired in their cognitive function of the mind to process that they need psychiatric assistance, it is a hard balance, right? Should we be injecting people with medications? Because people can have allergies. While I do think that people with severe mental illness need immediate action, there's also free will, right? So I think a good model to look at is the federal guidelines for the National Framework of Mental Health for Youth. And although this national framework from the U.S. federal level of the HHS applies for children in regards to a mental health standard, I think we should look at it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
To apply it to this, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to testify on HB 2159? If not, questions, members? Representative Gannon.
To the judiciary. Hey, good afternoon. Some other testifiers brought up some excellent points about, just for lay people, well-known concepts of due process and the potential taking of liberty for individuals. How does the judiciary feel about amending this to allow for a public defender to appear on behalf of defendants, considering the court will be making a decision as to the continued confinement of defendants?
So what you're asking me about is the ACT procedures.
Yes.
I only deal with the Chapter 704 procedures. So I would have to defer and get back to you on what the judiciary's position would be. That's why we support the intent of the bill for those ones, and we specifically support Sections 8 through 10 in Part 4.
So would this expedite these hearings? I mean, so would this move this along so that we can direct individuals towards appropriate treatment in lieu of continued confinement, say at the county facilities?
Anecdotally, I believe it has been helpful to have the GALs as opposed to the public defenders, but I don't know that for a fact, and you would have to ask Mr. Ikinaga or perhaps somebody else.
Okay.
I wouldn't know, sorry.
One last,
I can answer any other question about that.
Well, this is a balance, so
Yeah.
it's like, should we implicate individuals' due process rights in order to serve better appropriately direct them towards treatment and treatment facilities, kind of the move that many of us want to do. So the judiciary stands on its testimony to support this despite potential issues regarding, I guess, the legality of it. You know, this might.
So it's my understanding that the actual provision for public defenders was actually repealed by a bill a couple years ago, and that this is just a housekeeping matter in terms of fixing that. That's all that I know about it, because they decided to do the GALs. And that was something that was done by the legislature either last year or the year before. But they have not been going, as far as I know, to any of these ACT hearings for at least the last year, if not more.
But if an individual already has a public defender or a court-appointed attorney or, you know, is hired counsel, of course, they're going to be.
If they hire counsel, then yes, they would be there, but the public defender has not been there for them.
So these hearings have just been happening without counsel already?
They've had a GAL.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, members? Not, thank you very much. Let's move on. Next measure, HB 2509, proposing an amendment to Article 6, Section 3 of the Hawaii State Constitution to increase the mandatory retirement age for state justices and judges. This proposes a constitutional amendment to increase the mandatory retirement age for state justices and judges from 70 years to 75 years of age. First up, we have testimony from the judiciary. In support. Next, we have testimony from the Community Alliance on Prisons in support.
Good afternoon, Chair Tarnas.
Afternoon.
And members of the committee. Kat Brady testifying on behalf of Community Alliance on Prisons. You know, it would be a real shame to lose all that institutional knowledge that judges have acquired over the years and decades. So we definitely support this measure. And I wanted to look to see what other states are doing. So there are 8 states currently that have 75 as the retirement age. Florida, Indiana, Kansas, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Texas, Utah, and Washington State. 14 states have no retirement age. California, Delaware, Georgia, Idaho, Kentucky, Maine, Mississippi, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, New Mexico, Rhode Island, Tennessee, and West Virginia. And I included a graph in there of all the states so you can actually see what other states are doing as well. We really need to pass this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on HB 2509? Governor Abercrombie.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to indicate that while I was governor, one of the great regrets that I had is that I did not have the opportunity perhaps to be able to call upon the experience that was just mentioned here and the integrity and the perspective that I felt very, very deeply resided with members of the judiciary. I really wish that it could be extended to age 75. I think we're the losers on this. Bottom line for me is Social Security was picked at 65 back when it passed in the 30s because people tended to die very soon after the age of 65. Both the life expectancy of the folks in the United States has extended considerably, and the capacity, I think, to lead a productive life and a life capable of making serious decisions based on experience, I think would be enhanced if the age was lifted to 75. It always depends on the talent in the room. I understand that. Just extending the age is not necessarily going to extend the capacity to make good decisions. Just as the Constitution doesn't guarantee us good government, it guarantees us the opportunity. I think if we moved the age to 75, it wouldn't guarantee necessarily we'd have better judges, but would give us the opportunity that if we did pick people based on intelligence and integrity, that we could benefit from their service to the age of 75.
Thank you very much. Next, anyone else wishing to testify in HB 2509? If not, questions, members? Representative Ganadin.
Sorry to extend this here to the judiciary.
They're not here.
How's the judiciary not here?
Well, nope, yeah. Anybody want to respond to questions about the retirement age?
Yeah, to discuss how you pick judges. Yeah, to the Honorable Judge Viola,
Who's way younger than the retirement age.
I would like a point of clarification. Is it chronological age or how you feel? Because otherwise I may be past the mandatory retirement age already.
That's right. Just to educate the committee and the public, the state of Hawaii chooses judges in a way that is fairly well respected nationwide. Can you explain to us how it does it?
We have a independent judicial selection commission, so qualified candidate or anybody wishing to apply and meet the basic qualifications will submit your name. You'll go through our rigorous selection process, interview process at the Judicial Selection Commission. It deviates if you're a district court level judge, including district family court and above, or circuit court and above. The Judicial Selection Committee commission will select roughly around 6 names to present to the appointing authority. In the case of district court judge, that's the Chief Justice. For circuit court judges and above, that's to the governor. And then in both instances, we are subject to the advice and consent of the Senate. It's pretty, having been through it, I can tell you it's pretty rigorous, yeah, and independent, I feel.
And the term, correct me if I'm wrong, is 10 years?
For district and district family court judges, it's 6 years.
6 years for district and family, and then 10 years for circuit court judges?
Yes.
And so oftentimes you have individuals who join the bench, and then they serve, say, a 10, or then maybe another 10, and then they are forced to retire, turn into a pumpkin at age 70, which is what the former Judge Town discussed it as.
Yeah, if you can, if you're right now less than 70 years of age, you can file a petition for reappointment, and you go through the Judicial Selection Commission process again.
I'm asking you, thank you so much for testifying before us. What kind of things do judges do when they are essentially forced to retire? Do they go back into private practice? Do they continue to work for the state? Do they do some sort of arbitration work? What kind of work do they do?
I think it's kind of the range. Some people want to keep on working, some people don't. Some people do private kind of alternative dispute resolution, mediations, arbitration. Some will work for the state. Some will go back into private practice. Some will ride off into the sunset and to the gentle pastures and take it easy.
So
I haven't picked mine yet.
There you go. You can do whatever you want to in retirement. So there's, so you're saying there's no elected judges here in the state of Hawaii, unlike other states?
That's correct.
All right. So we don't have some of the issues regarding politicization of judges that other states do.
Probably got to be a little careful about that, but probably not.
Thank you so much, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Other questions, members? If not, let's move on. Thanks very much, Judge Viola, for that impromptu testimony. Next, we have HB 2657 relating to abusive litigation. This establishes judicial procedures to prevent and remedy abusive litigation. First up, Judge Viola. This is why you came.
I was supposed to be here for this one, yes. So, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, the last time I was in front of this committee, I testified on, I think, House Bill 1965, and I'd asked the committee to defer that bill in favor of this bill and its Senate companion, SB 2685. The reason being that we thought that this bill and that companion bill were probably a slightly better vehicle to address this important issue. I thank the committee for deferring HB 1965 and for setting a hearing on this bill. Our testimony is essentially identical to the testimony that we submitted to the Senate Judiciary Committee on Senate Bill 2865. Our recommendations were adopted by the Judiciary Committee. I don't think that committee report and their first draft is out quite yet. But our comments are directed to trying to improve some of the language, perhaps, in this bill. And I stand otherwise on our testimony. I'm available for written comments or questions if you have any.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next, we have testimony and support from the Hawaii State Coalition Against Domestic Violence. Angelina Mercado, please proceed.
Aloha and good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members. I'm Angie Mercado, the Executive Director of the Hawaii State Coalition Against Domestic Violence. And on behalf of our 27 member programs statewide, I respectfully submit testimony in strong support of this measure. Similar to as the judiciary has just testified, we too have submitted testimony with respectful recommendations to similar to the ones that we did for the Senate companion of this measure. Our attempt in the amendments is just to make sure that it's inclusive of sexual assault, stalking victims, cleaning up some of the language and making sure that we address some of the issues that we see in the family court system, for instance, that allows respondents to agree to a protection order in addition to respondents who have been found to have or where there's a finding of domestic violence in the protection order issuance. We know that this is a serious issue that affects many survivors of domestic violence, and we are grateful that this committee is willing to hear this issue and are available for any other questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Next, we have testimony and support from Parents and Children Together. Testimony and support from the American Association of University Women. Testimony and support from Shana Wailana Kukila. Testimony and support from 7 other individuals. Is there anyone else wishing to testify in HB 2657? If not, questions, members?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, please. Mr. Dunn, proceed.
If I may.
Yes.
And you had a long and very important agenda, so I'll be brief. As with House
Please
Bill
introduce yourself to those who don't know your
Dennis
famous
Dunn,
person.
Retired Director of the Victim Witness COCOA Services in the Honolulu Prosecutor's Office. Excuse me, it's through my lens of 45 years plus of assisting crime victims that I testifying in support of this measure. Similar to House Bill 1965, I think this measure will allow the court to be able to deal with individuals who are using the legal system to further abuse their victims. We just can't have that happen, and I think it's a perversion of the justice system. The only, as mentioned by Ms. Mercado, my only concerns or misgivings about this version is simply that sexual assault and stalking victims are not included. And I think that that's something you should take a careful look at. Otherwise, I will defer to the coalition's testimony as to other amendments, and I ask for your strong support of this measure. And I thank you very much for your time and consideration. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? If not, questions, members? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thanks to the testifiers. Last measure, House Bill 1933, relating to sobriety checks. Establishes a sobriety checkpoint special fund to provide funding to county law enforcement agencies for staffing for sobriety checks and processing of persons arrested at sobriety checkpoints. Increases the state vehicle registration fee and establishes the amount to be deposited into the sobriety checkpoint special fund, and appropriates funds into the sobriety checkpoint special fund and out of the special fund as grants and aid for the counties. First up, we have testimony and support from the Department of Law Enforcement. Testimony and support from the Department of Transportation. Testimony and support from the Department of Budget and Finance, or comments from the Department of Finance, Budget and Finance. Testimony and support from the company Intoxilac, and testimony and support from Alice Liu, Mothers Against Drunk Driving Hawaii. Please proceed, Ms. Liu.
Aloha, Chair Tanas, members of the committee. I'm Alice Liu from MAD Hawaii. I stand by my written testimony and support House Bill 1933. Sobriety checkpoints is a proven and vital countermeasure against impaired driving and preventing crashes. That's why we support this bill, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to testify in House Bill 1933 HD1? If not, questions, members? Seeing none, let's move on to decision-making. Thank you to everyone who is testifying today on this lengthy agenda. Vice Chair Takayama is not able to be here today, so I've asked Representative Ganadin to take the vote today. First up, we have HB 1544, related to water code penalties. A recommendation after discussion with the Water and Land Chair is to pass this out as is. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Members, the recommendation of the chair is to pass this out as is. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair Takayama is excused. Representative Ebslin? Aye. Myself, aye. Representative Holt? Aye. Representative Ichiyama? Aye. Representative Iligan? Aye. Representative Kong? With reservation. Representative Miyake? Aye. Representative Souza? Chair, noting the reservations of Representative Kong, the recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much. Next bill, House Bill 1781 HD1. I recommend passing out with the technical amendments only. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Members, the recommendation of the chair is to pass out with technical amendments, noting the excusal of Vice Chair Takayama. Are there any reservations or no's? Noting none, Chair, the recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next measure, House Bill 2467 HD1. I recommend passing out as is. Questions or concerns, members? Not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Members, the recommendation is to pass out as is, noting the excusal of Vice Chair Takayama. Are there any no's or reservations? Chair, the recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next measure, House Bill 2328, relating to affordable housing. Recommendation is to pass out with technical amendments. Any questions or concerns, members? And I want to thank Governor Abercrombie for your advocacy for the measure. Questions or concerns, members?
Thank you, Governor.
If not, please proceed with the vote. Representative Gannon.
Members, voting on HB 2328 HD1.
With amendments.
With amendments, noting the excusal of Vice Chair Takayama. Are there any reservations or no's? Chair, the recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next measure, House Bill 2478 HD1. Recommendation is pass out as is. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Members, the recommendation of chair is to pass out HB 2478 HD1 as is. Are there any reservations or no's? Noting the excusal of Vice Chair Takayama. Any no's or reservations? Noting none. Chair, the recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next measure, House Bill 2626. Recommendation is pass out as is. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Members, the recommendation of the chair is to pass out HB 2626 HD1 as is, noting the excusal of Vice Chair Takayama. Are there any reservations or no's? Chair, the recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next measure relating to wildfire, HB 2700 HD1 relating to wildfires. Recommendation is passed out with amendments. I'd like to include technical amendments. On page 3, line 19, I need to change the reference from what it says Section 3 should be changed to Section 7. That was incorrect. The terms, quote, cooperative utility and investor-owned utility and the term wildfire risk mitigation plan are not used in this statute, so we're going to delete them. I want to delete sections in here which bind future legislatures to take action. We can't do that. That's not allowed. So it's on page 10, lines 15 to 17, page 14, lines 3 to 5, and page 17, lines 1 to 5. On page 11, line 4, I want to amend Chapter 76, Section 76-16B to make the administrator permanently exempt. And then I want to make technical amendments for clarity, consistency, and style. And then I would like to adopt the amendments recommended by the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs, Office of Administrative Hearings, and Office of Consumer Advocacy. This measure has a lot of work to be done on it, but as the governor's representative said, we need to move this vehicle forward even with gaps and pukas in the bill, and we hope to answer these questions as we move forward, because this is a challenging one that we need to address. That's my recommendation, and this was with prior concurrence of the previous chairs of Water, Land, and Consumer Protection and Commerce. Any questions or concerns, members? If not, oh, did you have a comment?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Chair, I'm going to be voting with reservations. I feel like there's just too many open questions, including the price tag to the taxpayer.
Understood. Any other questions or concerns? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Members, the recommendation of the chair is to pass HB 2700 HD1 with amendments. Noting the excusal of Vice Chair Takayama, are there any reservations or noes? Noting none, the recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. House Bill 2429 HD1 relating to emergency public assistance. I recommend passing this with amendments. I want to make some technical amendments and also adopt the recommendation of the State Procurement Office and encourage continued conversation between the State Procurement Office and your office. So we're passing out HB 2429 HD1 with amendments.
Members, the recommendation of chair is to pass out HB 2429 HD1 with amendments, noting the excusal of Vice Chair Takayama. Are there any noes or reservations? Noting none, Chair, the recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. House Bill 1778 HD1 relating to tobacco products. I recommend we move this out with amendments. I'd like to adopt the Attorney General's amendments and make some additional technical amendments. And I got the prior concurrence of the Health Chair for that recommendation. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote. HB 1778 HD1 with amendments.
Got it. Members, the recommendation of the chair is to pass out HB 1778 HD1 with amendments, noting the excusal of Vice Chair Takayama. Are there any noes or reservations? No vote. Noting the no vote of Representative Kong. Are there any further noes or reservations? Chair, the recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next measure, House Bill 1954 HD1 relating to the Community Outreach Court. Recommend we move this out as is and include in the committee report the appropriations that are requested. So we're moving this out as is. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Members, the recommendation of chair is to pass out HB 1954 as is, HD with an HD1. Are there any noes or reservations? Noting none, the adoption is recommended, Chair.
Thank you. Moving on to House Bill 2451 HD1. Recommendation is to pass this out with amendments. I'd like to adopt the Judiciary's amendments and the Department of Health's amendments. And I got the prior concurrence of the Health Committee Chair. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Members, the recommendation of chair is to pass out HB 2451.
2451 HD1 with amendments.
With amendments. Are there any noes or reservations?
Wait.
Oh.
So we're, yeah, as I said, judiciary amendments and DOH amendments, so 2451 HD1 with amendments.
Okay, I'll take the vote. Once again, members, recommendation of chair is to pass out HB 2451 HD1 with amendments. Noting the excusal of Vice Chair Takayama, are there any noes or reservations? Noting none, Chair, the recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. House Bill 2159 HD1, I recommend we move this out with technical amendments only. I acknowledge concerns of some members about due process, but in consultation with the Health Committee Chair, she urged us to move this out only with technical amendments. And we would include the requested appropriations in the committee report. Questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Members, the recommendation of chair is to pass out HB 2159 HD1 as is.
Nope, technical amendments.
Technical amendments, noting the excusal of Vice Chair Takayama, are there any noes or reservations? Noting none, Chair, the recommendation is adopted. I'm okay.
Okay, next measure, HB 2509, proposing an amendment to Article 6, Section 3 of the Hawaii State Constitution to increase the mandatory retirement age for state justices and judges. I recommend we move this out with amendments to defect the effective date to the year 3000 and move it out. Questions or concerns, members? If not, yes, Representative Gannon.
With all due respect to the former governor and those who testified, as someone who was once a member of the Young Lawyers Division and is a current practicing member, I think that the judicial selection process and then the way we matriculate judges in and out of the profession is actually excellent. And it provides an excellent opportunity for qualified, talented lawyers to enter the bench. And I don't want to inhibit that process. For that, I'm going to be voting no.
Okay.
I'm going to be voting no, too, for the same reasons. Thank you.
Oh, we got to have future judges in this panel here.
Gotta keep your record clean.
Mark my words.
All right.
Noting the two noes, anyone else wishing to vote with reservations or noes? Noting the excused absence of Vice Chair Takayama.
Yeah.
Did I get enough votes to pass it out?
I believe so. All right.
Why don't you say that?
All right, let's do it. Let's do it. All right, members. The recommendation of chair is to pass out HB 2509 as is, noting the excusal.
Actually, I wanted to move it out with amendments.
Every time.
Defecting the effective date to the year 3000. So
Yeah,
try it again. HB 2509.
In the year 3000, maybe I'll be old enough. All right.
HB
2509, passing out with amendments. Are there, noting the excusal of Vice Chair Takayama, the no vote of myself, and the no vote of Representative Souza, are there any other noes or reservations? Chair, the recommendation is adopted.
Okay.
All right.
Moving on. House Bill 2657 relating to abusive litigation. I would recommend we move this out with amendments. You got that? With amendments.
With amendments.
Okay. Making technical amendments, I'd like to defect the effective date to the year 3000, adopt the judiciary's amendments, also adopt the amendments from the Hawaii State Coalition Against Domestic Violence, and I would like to, on page 8, lines 1 to 4, this section references temporary restraining orders and orders for protection. However, there may be other instances in which a party may be found to have committed domestic violence, like under the penal code. So what I'd like to do is to amend section 3A2 to insert a proviso to that effect. So I just want to be as broad as possible on this. And then I want to make some technical, as I mentioned, technical amendments needed for clarity, consistency, and style. Those are my recommendations. Questions or concerns, members?
I have a concern.
Yes.
I'll be voting no on this measure. I'm terribly worried about the unintended consequences of this bill, and yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else with questions or concerns? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Members, the recommendation of chair is to pass out HB 2657 with amendments, noting the excusal of Vice Chair Takayama and the no vote, Representative Souza. Are there any further reservations or noes? Seeing none, Chair, the recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Final measure, HB 1933, HD1, relating to sobriety checks. I recommend we move this out as is. Questions or concerns, members?
I have a concern.
Representative Souza.
I'm going to be voting with reservations on this measure. I am all for cracking down on DUIs, but I do think that funding sobriety checkpoints might be a little problematic, because if we can't fully prosecute the cases, then all that funding will be for nothing. And from my experience, DUI checkpoint cases are very difficult to prosecute due to proving the elements of the case. Thank you.
Valid point. Thank you. Any other questions or concerns, members? If not, Vice Chair for the vote.
Members, the recommendation of chair is to pass out HB 1933 HD1 as is, noting the excusal of Vice Chair Takayama and the reservations of Representative Souza. Are there any further reservations or noes? Seeing none, Chair, the recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. There being no further business before this committee, we are adjourned.